Good morning, my friends. Bix Weir, roadtoroota.com with your morning Horn of Z's. Got the mug this morning. Horn of Z's means sip of coffee in a language called Bootling, which is a Northern California unique language that they invented. It is also the name of my morning news program, which is right now. And today we are going to start on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is going nuts, as predicted. I have been recommending people get into Bitcoin for a long time, actually before Mt. Gox. Yes, the Mt. Gox debacle was difficult to ride through, and remember where we were at that time. It was, the world wasn't ready for a new currency yet, but the seed was planted, the idea was planted, and then a long delay since then, and for the past 2 years, I've been screaming to get into Bitcoin when it was down at $200 a coin. And today we look and it is at all-time high of 1848. Those of you who have been on the road to Ruta for a long time and took my advice and bought a lot of Bitcoin, and I know there's many of you out there are smiling today as we are approaching the all-time high of gold. Now, for you traders out there, that's the first trigger point. I did a video of 3 trigger points plus a fourth option. The 3 trigger points were around $1,900, which is the old high for gold, because it will be starting to be talked about that Bitcoin is surpassing gold's all-time high, and then most likely you're going to have some people trying to get out of Bitcoin to buy gold, just to diversify because you want a balanced portfolio. I think it's a smart move. I wouldn't buy gold. I would definitely buy silver at $16.25 or wherever the insane number is today. But so we're approaching that $1,900. The next trigger point is $2,000 because it's a big fat round number, and the manipulators and traders love to slam things down on the big number and then load up later. And there are definitely manipulators in the Bitcoin market, but there's also people who want to load up, and people waiting for the next pullback to, spend a few million or a few billion dollars loading up a large Bitcoin portfolio. So any drop in the price of Bitcoin will probably be very short-lived. So just be prepared for that, because the people who slam it down, who begin the slam and hope everybody follows them, are looking to load up again as well at a lower price. So it'll be really interesting as we get near these 3 trigger points. And the third trigger point is around $2,300-$2,400 because it is a doubling of the old Mt. Gox high. And that is another place where people will say, oh my God, it's gone 50% higher than it's ever gone before. So the manipulators will think the same thing, because the sheeple will start piling in. But most of these trades that go on are hedge funds and banks. The banks are trying to get in. They even invented their own coin, the Ripple coin, that is ripping through all old records. The only thing about Ripple coin is mostly owned by banks, which is great, and when it's going up. But just like everything else, when it crashes, all banks will be selling the same coin to get liquidity at the same time. So yeah, you can play the Ripple coin game if you choose, but I think not every other, but the vast majority, I would say 98 to 99% of the altcoins will be gone after the banking collapse. When the banks go down, it will shake all markets. And these cryptocurrencies that really have no use, and there are a lot of them, will probably never trade again, never open up again on any other exchange after all the exchanges close. Bitcoin will suffer too in the banking crash because the exchanges will shut down and no one will know what a Bitcoin's worth. It's just like the silver and gold prices. No one will know what the price of silver and gold is. Nobody really knows today what the fair market value of silver and gold is anyway, because it's only derivatives that are traded on the COMEX and the LBMA, and we all know how rigged that market is via computer programs written by Alan Greenspan back in the 1960s, and they carry through today. So yeah, lots of action going on. But this is the chart monthly, or this is a 6-month chart for Bitcoin, and look at that rise. It went the low just back to November 15th was 694. That was after the ETF was denied and it crashed, and everybody said, of course, Bitcoin is dead. How many times have we heard Bitcoin is dead? It's over 100 now, and look at Bitcoin. It's I wouldn't say it's like Jesus Christ because it keeps rising from the dead, but it is ridiculous how well it is performing, and it will continue to perform. This is not a case of a bubble until your neighbors tell you about a new Bitcoin offshoot that they're thinking of investing in and want to know your thoughts on it. Your neighbors don't know anything about Bitcoin and probably won't know anything about Bitcoin until next year, when Bitcoin's over 10,000 an ounce, or a coin, $10,000 for one Bitcoin, and then it just goes from there. And then the news will get out. Then the banks and the governments will start talking about using Bitcoin as a means of exchange going, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years into the future. That's what Bitcoin represents. And I know it's hard to get your heads around it, but it was also hard to get your heads around, why Bitcoin was worth $200 only a couple of years ago. And I was jumping up and down screaming about it. You're not in too late. You're in too late when your neighbors start saying, they're into Bitcoin and, they want to tell you about everything about the new applications for Bitcoin. That's when you might start thinking, okay, what other assets are there out there? But right now, you are a prime mover. You are if you own Bitcoin right now, you are one of the few in the entire world that own Bitcoin. And everybody's going to be clamoring for it, especially central banks and regular banks and governments. They're going to be trying to print money to buy Bitcoin. That's how crazy it's going to get. But right now, this is the baby days, and people are still learning about it, and there's still kinks to be worked out. But clearly, if you took my advice just a couple years ago and bought around $200, you're doing great. If you take my advice and buy now and close your eyes for the next 6 months, you're going to be doing great again. It's going to go up at least 5 times is my estimate on what Bitcoin's going to do just this year. 5 times from here is around 10,000 was my prediction. I think it was November that I released, or December, the timeline report. And yeah, it had Bitcoin going up to around 10,000, and yes, it has silver going up too. But silver probably is going to all happen in one day or 1 week. The jump from suppression to non-suppression, which will be really, really exciting. So make sure you've got your physical silver in your own hand. So yeah, keep an eye on Bitcoin. Ethereum is also a favorite of mine because of the use cases. It's going to be used for everything. It's a blockchain technology, not necessarily a cryptocurrency. So I have high hopes for that. The other ones, some will make it and some won't. If there's a need for it and a use for it, a need as a cryptocurrency will be called into question because Bitcoin will be the surviving and utilized cryptocurrency for the most part. But if there's other coins with other features that would make sense. But if it's as a just purely competition for Bitcoin, good luck with that. And I don't think any of those coins will make it in the long run, especially when the exchanges close down and nobody's trading anything. But in the speculation world and in the exciting world of altcoins, you're going to get huge volatility in those smally traded, tiny market cap altcoins. So if you're in for the, you can handle the stomach turning moves, 100% up in a day, 200% down in a day, stuff like that. That stuff is coming for the altcoins. I don't think so for Bitcoin or Ethereum, because of the market cap right now and because of the solid use case. Bitcoin as a currency, a means of exchange, and Ethereum as a tool for use on the blockchain. People are writing programs on the top of Ethereum, and it's going to be extremely useful for the next 50 years. It's like getting in on the ground floor of the World Wide Web, and that was released in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, that's Ethereum. So it's cool stuff. Anyway, let's move on to some news. We'll quickly run through our friends over at Zero Hedge. Of course, the top of the news these days is the head of the FBI being fired. Donald Trump can fire anybody he wants. The deep state and the liberals, Democrats, the insanity is that we even need to talk about this. Trump can hire and fire anybody he wants. And and he has. Comey had been compromised. Comey was a wimp. He wouldn't press charges of anything controversial, but he absolutely was following the lead of the deep state narrative that there's Russian slash Trump administration collusion in the election. And was Trump colluding with the Russians? Yes, of course. Was Trump colluding with the Chinese? Yes, of course. Were the good guys getting everybody together to make this move to take out the bad guys, the deep state bad guys that have controlled our lives for so long? Yes, of course. And that's what needs to come out in these congressional hearings. The Trump Russia thing is meaningless in compared to the takedown of those people who control our lives every day. And so that's the battle. And as far as who is going to become the head of the FBI, I have my vote, and I know his name is being touted out there. Trey Gowdy, I think it would be the great person to head that. If you've seen him in the congressional hearings, the guy's brilliant legal mind, and he's no nonsense. He knows exactly what's going on. And there's going to be a lot of investigations coming up into the deep state, into all kinds of issues that a lot of them revolve around treason. And the maximum penalty for treason is death. So we might see some of these high profile people being executed at some point, which is really interesting, because once the floodgates open and people are actually charged for the crimes they commit, it'll get down to the shock and awe of the people that this stuff was even allowed in America, and we need to take back our country, and Trump is doing just that. So it'll be a very important appointment. It'll be interesting if it gets approved, if it needs to be approved. Yeah, I think it needs to be approved by the House and the Senate. And even though the Republicans have a majority, there's a couple Republicans like John McCain who work for the bad guys within the deep state who might put up a stink. So they're going to have to get some Democrats on board as well. But a lot of Congress people are absolutely afraid for their lives, and they will do anything and everything not to let this stuff become open and out and known to the public. And they're trying to do it. They're trying to take down the president. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they should be charged for treason right there, with all the lies that are being spread. And then Washington Post and the New York Times are, I mean, it's crazy what the left media is saying, and then they keep having to retract it, but they get their little talking point out. Anyway, let's see what Zero Hedge is talking about. More drama. You're going to see a lot more drama in the days, weeks, months ahead, so get ready for it. Washington Post says Deputy Attorney General threatened to resign over Comey termination. Department of Justice denies. Like I said, the Washington Post puts out headlines and articles that may not be true, and then they print a tiny retraction the next day, but it gets that narrative out there. It gets that meme going. Talk about fake news. And they always quote a third party who cannot be disclosed. If it ever says that, a third party, it's lie. It's fake news. So if you hear a third party, fake news. Presenting Goldman's worst case survival guide to uncertainty, taxes, and trade. Goldman Sachs. What a company. They need to close their doors. They need to do God's work in heaven. They need to be closed down. And they will be closed down. They're a huge derivative player as well. One of the big 4 or 5 derivative banks in the United States. And yes, they are a bank. They do have banking status. In order to get the bailout in 2008, they had to become a bank. It's just criminal. Just thinking about it just makes my skin crawl. But hey, half of our government is run by ex-Goldman Sachs or future Goldman Sachs people. And yeah, you go into the depths of Goldman, and it's criminal. It's a criminal organization. Most of you already know that by now. Trump reportedly considering former Congressman Mike Rogers as FBI director. According to the To a White House official, Bloomberg is reporting that Donald Trump is considering Mike Rogers, a former congressman and FBI agent from Michigan, to replace James Comey as FBI director. I don't know Mike Rogers, but I trust that the good guys in Trump will pick someone tough and strong and ready to take down these bad guys for all the evil crimes that have been done. And that's why the Democrats are freaking out, is because they know that if someone gets into that position, they have access to all this information, all the ongoing investigations, or the closed investigations. Go back to a lot of the closed stuff and say, okay, what was missed here, what was covered up. It'll be really exciting. French election gap filled. Dow dumps to 3-week lows as VIX tops 11. Is this the moment that the stock market crashes? The only way the stock market will crash is if the good guys choose it to happen. Given Trump's action on Comey, I think it is time that a lot of chaos get introduced into the system to crash the system. Ultimately, probably by September, October timeframe, but that doesn't mean it's not going to start right now and be a long burn. Although that's not that long away. We're in the middle of May, and June, July, August, and then there we are, bang, September. There's already talk of a showdown over budgets and debt ceilings and everything. And those newscasters who said Trump has burned all his goodwill in Congress, absolutely, that was a plan all along. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Well, maybe not exactly. I think his thoughts to orchestrate a smooth landing over the past couple months were misguided. And I think he has learned that a smooth landing is not possible, nor is it good for the system in general. We need to eliminate all those deep, dark pools of money. That's where most of the money lies. That's where J.P. Morgan trades $2 to $5 trillion per day out of their secret Florida office that they don't tell people about. But Jamie Dimon came out and said we trade $2 to $5 trillion per day. What is that money? Where is that money? J.P. Morgan, I think it's 2.5 has 2.5 trillion assets. What are they doing trading 2.5 trillion per day, 2 to 5 trillion per day? Insanity, because there's no rules against it. There's no rules against trading derivatives. There's no rules against trading commodities. All the rules are fluff. They don't mean anything if you don't control the volume traded, because that's where the price is set. There's nothing stopping J.P. Morgan from selling 50 billion ounces of electronic silver in one trade at one moment on the COMEX, and then having the COMEX shut their doors with the silver price at zero. That's why you have to get your silver out of third parties. Get it out of anything, out of Kitco, the Perth Mint, any third-party storage. It's not going to be there. It won't be there after the crash. Even the good ones, even the trustworthy third-party storage people, the guards of whatever facility it is being held in will walk away because they got to save their families. And will they guard your metal as the system falls down and their families are starving? Not a chance. Not a chance, my friend. So get it out, get it in your own possession, and figure out where to store it. All right, where are we? McCabe talks Russian meddling in Comey dismissal with Senate Intel Committee. They'll come out of that committee. The good guys are in charge, and this was a huge pivot point. And like it or not, and remember, this is the only thing the bad guys got to hold on to is the Trump-Russia card. Once that's out of the way, Trump is it's like open the Red Sea, and he can come through and start firing, investigating, and doing what we put him in office to do. Take out the bad guys. Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp means everybody who's committed a serious crime in Washington should go to jail. That's what my version of drain the swamp is. And the people should know about what they did. No more secret committees in Congress. Everybody needs to know everything. That time is over. We have been taken over by these bad guys, and now is the time to take our country back. Dennis Gartman snaps an epic rant against Snapchat. This is utter nonsense. This is not a business. This is a time-sapping hobby, a diversion, a silly little waste of aggregated time that can be spent profitably, but which is spent stupidly instead. Well, having Dennis Garmin say that is like the. I would imagine Snapchat will go through the roof now after he says that he's basically saying short the stock or sell the stock. Gartman has the worst record ever, and they throw him out there all the time. He's on all the media, and every time he says, "Oh, oil's about to run, past $60," oil dives under 40. So whatever, if you are trading the opposite of Gartman, bravo. But I absolutely agree with him on this on Snapchat. That's the insanity when there's free money. When money does not have value, you borrow a lot of it, and you leverage up everything. And that was the whole idea: keep interest rates low, make money free to traders, and let them go hog wild, and then pull the money out. The same thing happened. Same thing happened in 1929. Bankers shut down the spigots, and everything comes crashing down because it's all built on fractional reserve money, and then the bankers swoop up and take all the assets that are left over at the bottom. Same thing going on right now, although I don't think the bankers will survive this one. Just 10 companies account for half the percentage of S&P's 2017 returns. That makes perfect sense. Retail bloodbath. Macy's crashes after woeful results. Drags all department stores lower. The internet has changed that world, my friends. And anybody with paying retail space, it just cracks me up when I see it happening, because you can get it cheaper, and you can almost get it immediate lately with Amazon's localized warehouses. A lot of the stuff you can order it and get it a couple hours later. You don't even have to drive outside. The internet has changed the retail world, and it can flip back very easily with the crashing of the banks, because the just-in-time delivery system will end. And I do think at some point it will go back to local markets for food, for clothing, for everything, because the globalization factor, even within the country, within the United States, is going to all crumble away, especially between countries, though, because no one will trust each other when the unbacked fiat monetary system crashes. Bitcoin might solve that and fix that, and keep the globalization on the internet going. But then remember, you still have to have goods delivered, and without the just-in-time delivery system, without all the shipping companies and the logistics companies, that model breaks apart and globalization ends. So get ready for that. North Korea, you're going to hear a lot more. Will it go to a hot war? Possibly, it could, but I think China would be involved. And it won't be, I don't think it will be a war against any of the larger parties. It will be the world coming together and saying, all right, North Korea, the last stronghold of the bad guys of the Bush family, we're either going to remove your leader because he is unstable, or we're going to wipe out all your capabilities and basically bomb any kind of strategic asset that you have militarily, and then there'll be nothing left. And then we will require removing the leader, which is all about regime change, and then it gets ugly in North Korea, and nobody wants to do that. So it might just be taking out all his military assets in a rather large event, and China would probably be the one to do it, or the United States, or both, teaming up together and saying, okay, this is your last chance, stand down, or here's what's going to happen to you. He'll probably try to fire off a missile, it'll explode, and then all hell will rain down on his military sites. That's my guess. I don't see it ballooning into anything large between Russia, China, and the U.S. I think Russia, China, and the U.S. are working together behind the scenes. It's clear from Trump's relationship with Putin and Xi. So we'll see what happens, but I absolutely think that the U.S., Japan, and Russia are working together on this one, which is good. No need to nuke the world. Let's see, anything else exciting? Aetna abandons Obamacare totally. See you in September. I fail to understand how Speaker Paul Ryan and President Trump attempting to fix Obamacare before it blows up. The proper strategy would have been to wait for Obamacare to implode on its own merits. Obamacare is being put in place because after the system crashes, nobody's going to have health insurance. And and everybody's going to need something, and health is really important. So they're trying to get it in place where after the crash, everybody gets free health care. And because all the debt will be gone, we'll reallocate money, and that will be part of the reallocation. Fix the environment, fix the healthcare system, and reallocate money to the population. And that's where we're getting to. So, yeah, the whole idea behind Obamacare was not to fix anything. It was to destroy the healthcare system and institute a single-payer, government-paid healthcare system, a lot like Canada, the UK have that stuff. It's not free. You pay for it in taxes, obviously. But if the whole system falls apart, we're all going to need healthcare, and whatever is in place will probably make a lot more sense at that point in time, because all the debt will be gone and people will be flush with cash because of the allocation of the money. Now, how it's allocated after the crash is the big struggle that Alan Greenspan struggled with. And Ruda wrote it in the sand in the 1981 comic book, and you look at the Wishes and Rainbows comic. It's all about allocation of the colored flowers, allocation of the new monetary system, who gets what and why. I think a lot will have to do with Social Security balances, because it's, you give more to the people who have paid more into the system. But there's people who aren't even in that system, so there'll have to be some kind of base case given out of the new money. And what will the new money be? I used to think it was gold, because we have so much gold. It might be a component of gold, but I think Bitcoin will be involved as well. I think the 1 million Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto is still sitting on is actually the Bitcoin of the population of the United States of America. And everybody will be given some Bitcoin to transact business. I think Apple will put it on every iPhone. Probably all the phone manufacturers will also put a lot of Bitcoin, if not miners. 21 Inc. is making a Bitcoin miner that can go on your phone, a micro miner. But I think they're involved as well. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes getting ready for this crazy transition. Anyway, this is Bix Weir, roadtoruta.com. Thank you for joining in on the morning Horn of Z's. Remember to subscribe to these videos and go to the website, roadtoruta.com. In the top left part of it is a place to sign up for free emails. And you also get a free book called Silver, Gold, Bitcoin, and God. If you like any of those things, Silver, Gold, Bitcoin, or God, go ahead, sign up, get the book. It's a fun read, and it'll make sense in the world that's happening today. Anyway, I'm signing off. We'll talk to you real soon. Stay safe out there and be ready for the end of the bad guys.